Good morning, listeners and viewers. I nearly missed it there.
Good mo-
Um, it's gosh, it's Friday morning. Jeff, you've got a jumper on.
I know. Do you know what? Wasn't sure about the weather, right, Ammar? Last night, when I was leaving for work, it was absolute torrential rain. It was getting a bit chilly,
Recording in progress.
so I thought I'd put a
Oh,
jumper
good morning,
on.
listeners. Good morning, listeners and viewers. You're listening to Ammar and
Jalf.
right. Sorry, coming back to your story because Jamie was busy. He didn't hit the record button.
Anyway, I think it's getting into that new. Well, we're in between getting into a new season, aren't we? So I think the weather's a bit iffy. So we've got to figure out what to wear and what not to wear. But this morning the sun is out, Ammar, and I think it's warm. So I'm not dressed quite suitably.
No, I don't think so. I think you're absolutely right because I've got a jumper on as well.
I'm actually quite warm up here, so
Are you? No, it's cold. It's definitely cold out there. Winter is coming. Anyway, it's interesting week as always. I think every week's an interesting week. Um, Headlines, certainly this morning. Keir Starmer's having an interesting time at the minute, isn't he?
yeah. I mean, I've not heard too much. Is Mandelson has he fired Mandelson now or not?
Yeah,
Fired him.
I
Well,
think so. I believe so. Sorry, as I understand it.
yeah. Okay.
I think, I mean, gosh, have you been working out?
Oh, man.
What? Have you been working out?
Not really. Not as much
Yeah,
as
you can tell. Anyway, um, yeah. So your question about Mandelson?
Peter Mandelson.
Yeah. What do you know about him?
Well, Peter Mandelson is Jeffrey Epstein's best friend, isn't he?
Yeah, but did no one know that?
Well, I mean, he's come out and said that he's like a true friend of his, and they used to spend a lot of time together. And now he's saying that, I'm horrified by those statements or something on those lines. And obviously, I'm presuming that Sir Keir would have known all of that, and he still put him in an ambassadorial role. So knowing that, and then he was also fired by Tony Blair twice, wasn't he? When he was in Tony Blair's parliament. So he kind of comes back up and gets into these high profile positions and then they sack him again.
Yeah, I don't know. But I think there's a lot. I mean, the whole Jeffrey Epstein saga drama isn't over yet, is it?
I think it's absolutely horrific that, I just feel that there's so much injustice in that Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, it's clear that what they were doing, it was a paedophile ring. They were up to no good. And just because some of the world leaders were involved, there's just a massive cover up. And they're just finding it so difficult to bring all the guilty to the surface. And I think that's just gross injustice based on power. And like we've said many times before, justice can't prevail until it's universally applied to every single human being in the same way, regardless of who you are. And sadly, we don't. That's not the case in the world, and that's why maybe there's going to be troubles when that continues, because the everyday person is going to think, well, hold on, that's grossly unfair. And I think the scales must be balanced, because justice is justice. A crime is a crime, regardless of who's doing it.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the same time, from a we don't know what we don't know. So these are allegations, and yes, some of them have been proven, it would appear, without doubt. And curiously, I think I've watched too many movies now, and this isn't the conspiracy show. This is show business, and it's a show about business and everything else. But I've watched too many conspiracy theories. And if anyone had seen Yellowstone or anything like that, you'll even know more recently how things are done. But I mean, I can't imagine Epstein would have killed himself, would you?
Well, of course he didn't kill himself. I mean, it's just quite blatant that wasn't the case.
I don't think you can say that. That's outrageous. How dare you suggest that? Anyway, it's interesting, though, isn't it? It's interesting how people's behavior catches up.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just sad, Ammar. There's like young children involved. There's a lot of, innocent females that are involved, and their lives have been ruined. They have come to the fore and have done interviews. Some of them have been, all of a sudden, there's been sudden deaths amongst witnesses and stuff like that. And it's just a horrific situation that, those ladies and those people that are impacted and affected, they all deserve justice. And hopefully, somewhere down the line, those that are in those positions and those that have, sworn oaths to fight for justice, hopefully they will have the integrity to do their jobs without any kind of intimidation or without any type of fear. And hopefully someone's got the resilience to be able to see these cases through and provide justice for all those affected.
I mean, I agree. I agree. It is incredibly challenging, and power. It's all about power, isn't it? That's the thing. I think for me, behavior you can forgive, right? Because if you look at, I'm not going to sit here and apologize for watching Benny Hill. I actually used to enjoy it. I wasn't allowed to watch it, but should I apologize for watching Benny Hill? Would you apologize? I don't know. Maybe I should apologize for watching Benny Hill.
Recording stopped.
Why on earth should we apologize for watching Benny Hill? Something that was fine. I think the world's gone mad. Wokeism is off the charts, really. I mean, if you have to apologize for watching Benny Hill because it may have been politically incorrect as we stand today, but maybe it's the things that are politically politically incorrect, they're off the charts.
Yeah, I don't know, and I don't understand. Anyway, all I'm saying is things and time have changed. It is. What else is going on in the news? It wasn't just Peter Mandelson. My point around
recording in progress.
And I think Jamie's just having a hokey cokey, is what he is. The point around politics is the last couple of weeks have been like incredibly hard, right? And despite and regardless, and certainly we always have to give a balanced view, and this isn't a party political broadcast, but I find it really interesting, and actually not interesting, that's not even the right word. I find it quite sad, right? I'm actually quite sad that we're experiencing all of these issues, regardless of political party, and how curiously, when one party is in power, the other criticizes them to such an extent, saying this is outrageous, this is cronyism, this is that, this is all of these things. And as soon as any other party comes into power, They do exactly the same thing.
Yeah, I think British politics, Ammar, for hundreds of years, it was kind of it set the standard, it set the tone, the respect within the house and the way that
Recording stopped.
treated each other. I think it's a bit of a circus at the moment. I can't really find a better word for it, but I think it's just changed so much over the years, and I just don't feel inspired by any of the leaders, and that's a bit of a shame, isn't it? Because we should really look at them as standard bearers, you know, people that inspire a nation because of the words they say, the way that they conduct themselves, and everything else associated and connected with them. But unfortunately, I don't feel there's anyone there that's positively inspiring the nation.
Yes.
And then obviously just on politics, so there was this massive incident, the assassination of Charlie Kirk in America. I don't know if you saw footage of that, but that was absolutely horrific.
Was it? I haven't seen it.
Yeah. Well, have you heard of Charlie Kirk?
Not particularly.
Recording in progress.
I didn't know too much of Charlie Kirk. I've heard of him, but I didn't really. But then since his death, since his assassination, obviously it's been everywhere in the media, and I've just gone through one or two of the podcasts that he's done and the debates that he has. He was, I mean, regardless of his views, he's 31 years old, Ammar, and his debates, he was so skilled, such a skillful, knowledgeable individual in terms of debating with others. And you have to sometimes take your hat off to individuals with that level of knowledge and understanding of history and the world and politics and cultures, religions, history, people's backgrounds of different profiles of, you know, people were. So he was they class him as right-wing, pro-Trump, and he was at a college, university gathering, and there was thousands of people, and someone from
Recording stopped.
building from about 150 meters away, 150 meters, I might just think that's 100 meters plus another 100 meters race plus another 50. So someone's that far away, and a clean shot into his neck, and you could see all the blood gushing out of his neck, and dead on the spot. They said initially that he wasn't dead, but there was no way he was going to survive that. And that was a political assassination, and everyone's coming out, and people are saying that it's a attack on freedom of speech because he was outspoken, he had his views. But the sad thing is, the fact that he's got a view, whether you agree with it or you disagree with it, how can that stir up somebody to then go and assassinate him? And interestingly, Ammar, when something like this has happened, how come in today's society you cannot find the gunman? That to me is a bit baffling. If someone's shot him from 150 meters away, there's lots of security on the scene. Would you not go and block all kind of exit routes immediately and find out who the perpetrator is and arrest him? And now he's at
Recording in progress.
where he is.
So I was speaking at an event last night, and it's interesting, and I'm finding myself trying to be as diplomatic as I can, whilst conveying a point that everyone should be entitled to their opinion, as long as their opinion isn't imposed on other people. Everyone should be entitled to their opinion. I don't, I might not agree with Tommy Robinson, and I don't particularly like the way that he is imposing his opinion on others, and everyone are following them. But at the same time, I don't have
Recording stopped.
anything against it. Other than I think it's sad that he's taken such a divisive approach. But is that somebody, or is that those tensions and feelings, they exist anywhere and anyway? And that's probably not a great example. But my point being, Jack, I don't need to agree. You and I don't agree on everything.
Of course.
I certainly don't necessarily agree to anything that my wife says. I wouldn't tell her that. Obviously, I agree everything that my wife says, but but you know what I mean. As in, everyone's got a view, right? So going back to this Charlie Kirk, I think we get fixated in the what instead of the why or the how, and respect and admire, someone's ability, and without fit and proper debate, right? Without fit and proper debate, what ends up happening, and you could argue, actually, you could potentially argue that Tommy Robinson had been trying to have fit and proper debates, right? And was dismissed and unable to do that in whatever way. Whether they were fit or proper is debatable. But anyway, he was trying to raise something and didn't get anywhere. And then look what's happened. Because unless you have, and we've said for at least 10 years now, Jalf, haven't we? Sort of, let's get Tommy Robinson on this show.
Yeah, I mean, my first question would be to Tommy is, well, why have you changed your name? What's the reason behind that? I think he'd get offended, but he has changed his name because he's not called Tommy Robinson. And who funds Tommy Robinson would be my second question.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
And so obviously there are people out there. It's a cattle market out there when it comes to like the media, social media, and all people spitting things out. And it's really, you have to be able to cut through it all and understand who are they, what's their background, what's their agenda, is it genuinely their views, or are they following the script of the people that are funding or financing them, because they'll have to work within certain parameters. So it might not be their views they're representing an organization. So there's so many things that we need to be mindful of. I think everybody needs to, when you see stuff, you got to really think and cut it, and you got to try and get through it and understand, is this authentic or not? And before you're making any judgments, you need to be very balanced and understand their perspective and an alternative perspective, and then make your judgment, as opposed to just judging something in an instantaneously based on what someone has said, because, as I said, they might have an agenda.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And this is the problem, right? We simply don't know what we don't know, and everyone comments and gets behind. And there's no doubt there's agendas, and there's, higher powers of influence and whatever else and things like that. Anyway, coming on to the great news that we need to discuss, and we've got one of our key stakeholders, partners coming on the show at 22. Are the ABC Awards, Jalf. And whilst I'm not involved in any of the judging, I'm just going to pull up, I think the connections. Let's see if any of the actual awards are notifications or the would appear to be, but yeah, we do have Michael Rankin, one of our supporters, joining us. Is what you have, and I want some positivity, Jeff. You know, I think this was my so I'd done this talk last night at in Morpeth, and it was about inclusion and the importance of inclusion, and I started having I've been reflecting, Jeff, a lot more recently on is it really inclusion, or is the biggest challenge for everyone? Like what excludes people primarily? What do you think is the number one contributor to exclusion?
Not fitting in.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great answer. And you're right. It is very much about not fitting in, but I mean, is that your fault or is that the people who should be including? That's the challenge. Not fitting in is like that's almost like, oh, well, I don't fit in there, as opposed to he doesn't fit in here. It's a two-way thing, isn't it? Anyway, the point that I was going to come on to make, and that I'm now coming on to make, is it's money. It's money. Money makes the world go round, and forever money has this stigma associated with it. Whether you've got it, people who haven't hate you. Whether you haven't got it, people who have go, and people don't talk about money. People don't talk about challenges with money. People don't talk about opportunities about money. And it's really interesting, because if you get to the crux of the challenges that are affecting all of us, right? The bottom line is the bottom line. If you can't afford to do something, if you are sat there, you've got 2-3 jobs, and you're still worrying whether it's the bills or the food or the whatever it is, whether it's us as business owners coming to the end of the week, end of the month, and going, bloody hell, I've got all of these stuff to pay, and I've got all of their mortgages to consider, and I've got all of their welfare. It's like everything's about money. The biggest thing that actually affects mental is finance. Single biggest contributor to suicide and depression is finance, is money. And yes, there's a clear and absolute argument that money, health and happiness, right, are independent. However, I would argue you don't have either if you can't afford to live. Your health deteriorates, you get mentally unwell, that then manifests into physical unwellness because you don't do anything. The contributor, it's profound. So I'm on a mission, Jeff. I'm on a mission to help and support people to understand how to make and keep money. My only problem is I don't know how to do that.
I think, do you not feel, Ammar, based on that then, is it important for people to understand what money is? The history of money, the system of money that exists today and the system of money that existed historically. Because if you're going to ask the average Joe, what is money? Do you think they're going to be able to give you an adequate answer?
Yeah, and I think you're just taking it too deep, to be honest. But yes, in response to your question, yes, I think people should understand what money is, where it's come from, where it is now, how actually even like our country is bust, and the vast majority of countries are bust. And certain organizations and entities are the ones who control the vast majority of money flow and what happens and how money is generated and the whole pretense and concept of interest was always introduced to try and control and whatever else. So of course there's those type of elements and aspects, and I agree. People need to understand that. But I'm talking about people like, listen, I'm not interested in that type of thing when I can't put 50 pence in my meter, because I've still got a 50 pence meter that I put 50 pence in. You know, as in I don't care where it comes from. I'd like to see more of where it comes from. And then some people actually think it comes from a tree. Ask some of my kids, they certainly think it grows on trees, you know, in their head, and some people do. So I agree. Yes, there needs to be a bit more of a wider, broader educational piece. But in essence, you know, at school, if everyone was told how to be more enterprising, right? If we started helping 6-year-olds understand the value of how to be more entrepreneurial, how to be, you know, understand the concept of making money and saving and spending and budgeting and all of these skills that you're just not taught, life skills. But not only that, imagine if the 6-year-old gets to becoming a 7-year-old and they then start supporting the 6-year-old. Imagine the 7-year-old turns to 8 and the 8-year-old starts supporting the 7-year-old. You know, one of the biggest challenges affecting us as community is people don't have confidence anymore, Jack. There's a fear. Everyone just fears everything and everyone. We're becoming socially isolated. We're sat constantly on our phones. We only engage with people in messaging. We don't even talk to people anymore. And those skills, yes, you could argue that's just modernization and a change of times. But in essence, part of the issue is we're human beings. We're not computers. We were never built to be computers. We like to be liked. We like to touch. We like to feel. We like to engage. We like to laugh. We like to do all of these things. So I'd like to see a change, and that change is only going to happen if we introduce it early enough and everyone gets behind it. Because imagine, right, after 10 years, whether I'm here or not, but imagine after 10 years, like thousands of kids have gone through this. Do you think when they are 16 and they've been helping someone younger than them, coaching and mentoring and supporting and doing this peer network, do you imagine they'd ever leave school going, oh, look, that person's a different color, or that person like is a whatever it is, and I don't want that person in my country and whatever else? Of course not. Of course they wouldn't. But actually, if they're better equipped to make money, right, well, then the likelihood is they wouldn't have the time or the effort to then go and like spend all the time buying flags and putting up bloody flags and whatever that nonsense is.
Can I ask, you know, like if you've been over to like Dubai and stuff and you're in like hotels and you see people having a business meeting in the lobby and stuff, and you got all colors of ethnicities and different color, different creeds of people. How come you never feel as though that there's a division of color in a country like in a city like Dubai? What's the difference? Because I've never felt they've ever had an issue of color in Dubai and other places like that.
I don't think they have an issue of colour in the vast majority of countries. It just tends to now be Western countries,
but it needs
isn't it?
Obviously there needs to be something as fueling the fire, let's say in the UK at this moment in time. And I personally don't see what's wrong with putting up a flag, to be honest. At the end of the day,
Look at this. Look at this.
the United Kingdom.
How long has that been there? How long has that flag been there?
Can't see it, Ammar. Sure. There you go. I mean, what is wrong with that? It's our flag of our country that we live in.
Yeah.
So why is that offensive? I don't get it. What's the big deal made out of it? It's just the British flag.
That flag has been lying on my desk for 6 years, 7 years, 2017, actually.
We want to celebrate Britishness, and what is wrong with that? Now, our version of Britishness might be different to somebody else's perspective on Britishness, because they might be from a different socio-culture or slightly different background to us, but we can still feel Britishness. So everything is just fueled for nothing. I don't get it. Oh, well, this is like they're making so much stuff is going on in the media. It's just ridiculous. It really is.
Anyway, we've got our guest coming on, going to talk. Actually, here's someone who we can get involved in our campaign to help people make money, save money, do more with their money. He's brilliant. He's actually been involved in some of our charitable endeavours as well, and he's been a staunch supporter of Asian Business Connections, AB Connections. And just very briefly, he's due to come on. So let me post this. Let me push some buttons. Let me quickly rattle through this presentation and share that. So, Radio Show, why you need a business plan in 2025. Well, you absolutely need a business plan. Starmer strengthens grip on economic policy with new budget board. UK sick hits 15-year high as mental health drives long-term absences. Reeves clamps down on Treasury emergency funds in a Fed of November budget. So just everything that we just talked about is amplified there. Next week, we've got a brilliant UK-India Business Summit launchpad for SME engagement under the India-UK Foreign Trade Agreement in partnership with ISS Freeports, TISA. And here we have it. Let's get Michael on the show. Chartered Wealth Manager, Raymond James Monument, supporter of the ABC Awards 2025. I don't know how to stop sharing. Woo! There we go. And it's gone quiet. It's gone incredibly quiet. Here he is. Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Jalf. Morning, Ammar. How are you?
Yeah, good.
Very good to be
How are
here.
you?
Yes, I'm excellent. Yes, and enjoying the last of the summer sun.
Where is it?
Yeah, it's out there at the moment. Don't know how long for. Enjoy it while you can.
It's cold though. It's cold. Well, in which case you should be out, shouldn't you? You should be sat in the garden or all of that type of stuff. Anyway, there's a lovely picture of you. I felt obligated to share it. Is what I did.
Thank you.
So Michael, come on, let's kick off with who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it?
Yes, of course, absolutely. My name is Michael Rankin. I'm a wealth manager for Raymond James Monument. Now, Raymond James Monument is an office that we got the opportunity to open a couple of years ago. So it's a job that I've been doing for about 25 years, which shocked me to even say the words. But I think there has been a slight shift in the way that we do things over the last few years, and why I do it. Well, you were talking about money and what that means to people. Well, it's a very privileged position to be in, to be brought into the inner circle when it comes to people's finances. And everybody has a different level of knowledge. Some people are very good with money. I'm a saver, my brother's a spender. So I think the fact that we can come in and help people achieve their goals, which, just this afternoon, I've got a client meeting, somebody who has decided to pull forward his retirement to February next year, and we're going to sit down and tell them how that's going to be possible.
Brilliant. So let's just pick up on that example then, please, Michael, because disregarding but not dismissing all of the conversations that Jalf and I were having on the importance of money, right?
Yes.
And it's something that you've been involved in as a profession for quarter of a century. Doesn't sound very long, does it? It's quarter of a century. Anyway, so well done, great innings. But there's always been a bit of a stigma, hasn't there? There's always like, I don't know if I need someone that can give me financial advice. Oh, I don't know if I want it. Or, oh, well, I've got someone, but I don't want to talk about it, because it almost portrays like, oh, I've got lots of money. And, fortunately, some people have, and good for them. And, but there is a bit of a stigma associated with it. But, on the view of tackling that, what's your view?
It's the old kind of, you shouldn't talk about money, religion. It's not normally kind of a polite conversation to have, but that's why I say the honor of being kind of invited into that kind of inner circle. You get to know people extremely well, and I think it is about trying to break down that barrier that people will initially put up. And when you meet somebody for the first time, you do sometimes have to coax information out that they may be slightly reluctant to part with. But as you build that relationship, then as that trust builds, I think then you really do see people starting to relax and let you in. And I think they can appreciate that our expertise is one of being able to try and gauge what they have, where they want to be, and how to bridge that journey.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I've never ever heard anyone say don't talk about money and religion. I've heard people talk about religion, politics, and football, which everyone does talk about. I don't know. I don't know. I've never come across anyone say don't talk about money. I think everyone wants to talk about money. I'm just talking about like from a probably and just I'm picking at your point a little. It's probably personally. Oh my gosh, I don't want to talk about money and whatever else and that type of thing. And the other, from a business perspective, Michael, that's why people stick with their accountants, right? And one of the issues that I've experienced and observed through the thousands of businesses that we've supported at the SME Centre of Excellence is someone will start a business, they'll and have a relationship with a bookkeeper, that they'll never have that bookkeeper never says to that business, oh, actually, you now need an accountant, right? And then that accountant never says, oh, you now need a tax advisor. That tax advisor says, you now need to move offshore. Or that, that offshore person says, you now need to move, you shouldn't have moved offshore, and you need a Michael is what you need. Those conversations don't necessarily happen, which then potentially, because you're not getting the best advice that you can and should be, you hinders part of your growth.
Absolutely. People do outgrow, their advisors. As I say, if you're starting off and you've got, somebody kind of small who's helping with the books, and then suddenly, fast forward 20 years and you're an international business, you probably will have to review your kind of accountancy needs. And that's something that we find as well. I think yeah, it is about trying to get in front of people, trying to see, where we can actually add value and help. because people do get, very much just stuck in their ways and stuck with their advisors. I mean, I always say, the adage that I say is that if you were going to build an extension, you wouldn't get one builder to come along and give you a quote. You would get two or three, and that's entirely sensible in pretty much every aspect of life, and it certainly is true of the financial sector. You should be comparing a couple of different sources, and feeling which one is the best fit for you.
Okay, thank you for that. And I think that's sound advice. But I mean, coming back to the education piece and do you think we could get to a point where people openly talk about money, or do you think that'll never be the case, Michael?
Well, politics was the other one that I forgot. Religion, politics, money. I mean, I think some people do think it's quite vulgar to talk about, if they are, in possession of money. I think if you've got somebody, one of your friends, peers, that you are on a similar standing, then you can probably talk more relaxed. But when you don't know what someone's situation is, and you're possibly talking about, oh yes, I've got this or I've got that, and they actually are scrabbling around for that 50 pence for the meter, then it would be quite an off-putting conversation. So yes, it is good to have honesty and openness, but I think sometimes you have to understand who you're speaking with and judge the audience.
Yeah, no, forgive me. I wasn't talking about personal conversations. I was just talking more broadly, as in, we need to get better at understanding money, how to make money, how to keep money, how to make more money once you've made money, how to retain, all of those type of things. I was just talking more broadly, not like, absolutely me having a conversation, the type of conversations I have with Jalf, where I am scrabbling around for that 50 pence and he sat there, with his sort of fur mink coat on and all of that type of thing, whilst he's got his heaters on and he's got people, blowing hot air on him as well. I certainly wasn't suggesting that. That's an interesting sight. I still haven't come across, and I'm picking on you again, Michael, but I still haven't come across the don't talk about money,
Right.
politics, and religion. I have come across politics, religion, and football. But anyway, because and the reason why they suggest those three things is because they're quite emotive. And and that's why I think it's great to talk about all three of those things. Anyway, we're not going to do that here. Michael, tell us what makes you and Raymond James Monument special.
Of course, absolutely. So I think what we have been able to do by opening up our own office here is to kind of go back almost to what we were doing 10, 15 years ago, which is a much more personalized approach. And I think one of the big things that we were very, very keen to do was make very transparent costs where, you can see right at the outset what the cost would be, and there's no additional costs on top that makes you think, all right, well, is there anything that's going to go on top of that that's going to change it? And a big part of that was the financial planning aspect. When I first started 25 years ago, financial planning was, an afterthought. Now it's absolutely the first thing that anybody really needs to think about, the wider picture rather than the specifics of, are you buying, Apple shares or Microsoft? And that financial planning, is offered by other companies, but it is often, an additional cost. Yes, we can help you. Here's the extra cost. What we wanted to do was to say, well, actually, it's an add-on to the service that we provide. If anybody needs that financial planning advice, it's there. So I think that was the biggest thing, to be able to say, right, regardless of your situation, we're not going to differentiate between our clients. We're just going to say that this is the level of service, and it's priced, to cover everything.
Which is quite unique and value driven then, isn't it? More broadly speaking, when it comes to, standard structures, different types of approaches and things like that, right?
Yes, absolutely, yes. I mean, things like, the fact that we don't charge, anything for transactions. As I say, it's a super transparent charging structure, and there are some companies out there. I think they are changing their ways, but they have come under a lot of kind of attacks in the press about these different kind of layered charging structures. And I think the industry does have a little way to go to bring itself in line with where the regulator wants us to be. And we wanted to make sure that we were there right from the outset, so that it was, as I say, very clear and super easy to understand. And I mean, I think that kind of leads back into what you were saying about how much do people actually understand finance, understand money. Tax is a big one. People understand possibly income tax, but all the other ones more difficult. So yes, I think, going back to your point before, people should be taught at school, what is a mortgage? What is APR on a credit card? People should be given these as a basic knowledge of education, because it is an absolute vital part of everybody's life. As much as you might love it or hate it, it's going to follow you all the way through, and you need a good ground to be able to make the most of that.
Michael, why do you think it's not being done in the curriculum as a standard?
Well, I think your guess is as good as mine, Jalf. I think this is stuff that we've been saying, for our whole lives. To think, the idea that you come out of school and, you want to get on the housing ladder and you say, oh, right, well, do you understand a mortgage? No, no one's ever explained it, don't understand it. There was an advert a long time ago that actually, it pitched itself at saying, oh, we only offer one simple mortgage. The rationale being, there could be 6 or 7 different kinds, and they were basically saying, you don't understand these, so I'm not going to complicate it, I'm just going to offer the one. Well, would it not be better for us to understand the different ones on offer and then be able to kind of choose what's best for you?
But just on that, a lot of students these days, you leave university and you're going to be in debt of around about 50 to 70,000 pounds on your, and that's going to take a lifetime for some to pay that back. And I think even things like that, the natural recourse is, yes, I finish A levels, I'm going to go into university, but I'm not sure if people have given that real thought in terms of, my goodness, that's a lot for me to invest. Do I go to university? Do I consider other options? Because that all comes down to money. And I'm not sure that that's filtered through to the masses yet.
You're absolutely right. I'm lucky enough.
Blind, aren't they?
I'm lucky enough that I went to university when you didn't actually have to pay for the courses. So it's a huge amount of debt to take on, and I think what has changed, over probably the last 10 to 15 years is the reintroduction of places for people to go and train in the workplace, so apprentice schemes, because I think that is a much better option for some people. And you're right, that they should be looking at that. And I think it goes back to school, goes back to education. That old careers guidance officer, they should be making it very clear as to what the different paths entail, because I think for some people it would be better just to go into the workplace and be trained on what that job requires, because of course you come out of university with skills that may not be transferable.
I think there's some incredibly valid points. It goes back to what I've been saying earlier on and been thinking for some time now. It's not just about here's budgeting and here's mortgages and whatever it is. It's just understanding how organizations and economies, just a bit more economic education as well, so people have a better grounding. But then how does that translate to them, right? Michael, which is something that as a professional you do. So let's just pick up this, you're probably seeing more people thinking about, actually, I don't want to work anymore, or I want to retire sooner because I want to enjoy it, or actually, I really don't know what's going on with my money. What are the basics that people could consider, with the caveat of, this is generic advice. This is not directed to anyone in particular. And if you want to have a proper conversation, then you need to talk to Michael.
Of course, absolutely. You know that I can't do that. So it's it's always been about trying to diversify, trying to spread your assets. You know, what's best, investments or property? Well, is it possible to do both? You know, that's always been the kind of the belief that it isn't about trying to choose one path. So if the government's going to give you something, and they don't give you much, but if they're going to give you something, try and make use of it. So that's your ISA allowance, £20,000 a year, where you can put £20,000 into a tax efficient wrapper where you can get capital growth tax free on your shares. You can get income tax free on either your cash ISAs or your stock and share ISA. With your pensions, well, again, they're going to give you tax breaks by putting money into the pension. So if you're putting it directly out of your salary, then you wouldn't be paying any tax on what you're putting in. If you're putting it in on something that's already been taxed, well, the government will actually gross that up with an additional payment into the pension. And for business owners, it's a very attractive prospect because you get stuck with money in the business that is sitting there accumulating, and you know that if you take it, you're going to get hit with a whopping tax bill. Well, make sure that you are maximising your pension allowances for yourself, for anybody else that is part of that business, whether it's partner, spouse, that sort of thing. But changes that we've seen, a lot of people have been taking the tax-free lump sums out of pensions because of the concern about changing regulations and what the government's going to do in the budget. And again, that is something that you should take some advice on.
But picking up your point, the most important thing right now is to take advantage of whatever benefits you are able to do.
Yes.
And on that point, Michael, on diversification, more generically speaking, what type of things I've got? Let's just say I haven't, but Jalf has. So Jalf's got £10 million there, sat in under his bed, probably not under his bed, in a bank. And what would you suggest he does to diversify?
Well, you would definitely look at first of all how you would structure the investment of that money. So you got your straightforward investments into kind of equities, which is your stocks and shares. But you've got different asset classes. So commodities, gold has been a phenomenal investment. But there's also things like the fixed income and bonds. But it's also, understanding what he needs that money for. A lot of people will actually feel they've got more than they need for their lifetime. So it's about passing it and cascading it down to next generations. And a big use, a very useful way of doing that would be to place it into trust and invest it within a trust structure or outright gifts. So there's a number of things, but it starts with understanding what that money needs to do for Jalf. What does he actually need it to be in the future? Does he need it to grow? Does he need it to be maintained? And once we understand that, then we can start to guide as to how best to hit those goals.
Cool. Great. Some sound advice. We're coming up to the end of the show. ABC Awards, Michael, why do you support them?
Well, it's always a fantastic evening. It's we've been going along for years, so it's huge amounts of fun. Great to see, people in the community being, kind of given the awards, and